Hello, everyone. Welcome to Career Pathways with Adeola Kagho. This is episode 3, and this is the podcast that brings you real stories. It also brings you very honest reflections and transformative insights that will help you navigate your career with clarity, with courage, and with purpose. Today, I have a very special guest with me, and she is Mrs. Oluwaseyi Kehinde. I'm excited to have her on the show. SKP, I'm extremely honored to have you here. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. The pleasure is mine.
All right. I'm going to get into reading your profile very quickly. Very important because I'd like the audience to have a feel of who we are speaking to today. All right. I call her SKP, and I'm going to stick with that throughout the podcast today. She has over 2 decades of experience at the intersection of policy, innovation, and social impact. She's a globally recognized leader building transformative initiatives across Africa and beyond. She's the founder of PAWEN, and that's Pan African Women Empowerment Network. She's the founder of TechUp Africa, and through both organizations, she has led programs that have directly empowered more than 10,000 beneficiaries across 39 countries and built partnerships with local, regional, and global institutions that have unlocked resources valued at over $2 million. Expertise spans across governance, advisory, economic development, and digital innovation, reflected in roles that have supported government agendas, guided multinational organizations, and supported emerging entrepreneurs. She's recognized by NASDAQ, Estee Lauder, Bank of America, and many more organizations for her impactful work. She's a sought after speaker, advisor, and thought leader committed to equipping women and youth with tools to excel in leadership, entrepreneurship, and technology. Wow, what a powerful profile. In fact, I was getting the chills reading the profile. And I hope that, through this podcast, we will unpack how, this journey began and the stories behind that people don't typically know about. So let's get into it, SKP. Let's get into the early beginnings. You had studied accounting, but you actually really wanted to study actuarial science. Could you tell us, please, firstly, how you made the decision to study accounting, and then looking at how your career has evolved today, coupled with the world of work, what you know about it now? If you had to make that decision again, would it be the same or what will be different?
Thank you, Adeola. Once more, thank you for having me on this podcast to share my experience and my journey. I think this is the first podcast I'll be on. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So, I
So
mean, it's yeah, I've been on interviews, but I think this is the first podcast. So thank you for the invite. So many questions you've asked in one. I wanted to study actuarial science, yes, because I love maths. I was one of those weird people who would solve jam maths in when she's just bored. Right, I was just one of those people. So I loved maths. I was the only commercial student in my class then who did further maths for SSC. Well, that's WASC, right? So I really love maths. I still do love maths. So I really wanted, so actuarial science was a course that combined both commercial and the mathematical elements. But my father was an accountant. He was a banker with the CBN then. And to make matters worse, his cousin happened to be the Professor Molenwa, was also the head of accounting for University of Lagos. And for many people who know Dr. Molenwa, he was a very funny character. And he told me that, look, and both of them really just told me that is accounting or not, and I spent an extra 1 year at home because I wanted to do actuarial science, and they both said is accounting or not. And so, still proving like I was a strong girl when they told me, if you want to enter university, you better come and study accounting. So accounting was not a choice. It was more to make my father and his cousin happy, right? So it was more about that. If I were to look back now, I think it's mixed feelings because my choice of studying accounting brought me networks and friends that I still have and I still keep till date, right? So for me, that is not anything I would want to change. But if you look at the way the world of work is going now, especially with advances in AI, machine learning, I think perhaps my actuarial science knowledge would have been better useful. I mean, you just never know. I thank God for that journey because, like I said, it brought me into networks that literally changed the trajectory of my career. And I don't think I'll change it for anything else.
Fantastic. So what I'm hearing is that there were benefits in studying accounting, even though this was a decision that was guided by your family. It's something that we typically see in our side of the world where there are influences from our parents and even culture on our career choices. But there were benefits, networks. But at the end of the day, if you had to make the decision again today, knowing what you know, you would probably infuse things that have to do with artificial intelligence. And yeah, I agree with you. That is really the way to go. All right. During our conversation, you had told me that very early in your career, you had three different job offers. And that's something quite rare. You find people who finish their programs, their service year, and they're unable to even get one job opportunity. But you had three different offers. Very interested to know how you made the decision in terms of the one you finally decided to go with. And also, what do you think enabled you to have three offers at the same time, knowing that a lot of people don't get this kind of opportunities? Was there some sort of preparation or what led to that, you think?
Okay. So recall that I was studying a course that I really did not enjoy, that I knew I was not going to use anything, use for anything in my futures. At that point in time, whilst I was in school, I was actually on the lookout for, okay, I want to build myself because I knew that getting the BSc certificate in accounting will be the final straw that my father could say, this is what you're going to do. So I started thinking of how can I build myself. And I was just fortunate, and that's just what it is, to discover an organization called ISEC. ISEC was a global leadership development organization for young people. And then, I mean, it gave me an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to develop. So I literally immersed myself into ISEC. In short, at some point, especially in time they were striking Unilag then, my home became the ISEC Lagos office, right? I was that immersed and involved in holding several leadership roles. So the different activities that I engaged in those organizations provided me with the three key things that we do in PAWEN now, which was competence to lead in the world of work. It gave me the confidence. I mean, at ISEC, you were doing campaigns. I mean, the only campaign I've ever done for any election was when I was in ISEC. I campaigned for both the state president, which I won, and national vice president, which I also won, and national president. So you were doing things that your typical university student would not do. You were making presentations. I was having the meetings with CEOs of banks as at when I was in year 2, year 3. Do you understand? So that gave me one, the competence to understand what was required in the world of work. That gave me the confidence. I mean, when you're literally speaking with CEOs of companies, and I'm not CEOs and board members, board chairmen of companies like Unilever, banks, and all of that, it gives you that confidence to be able to do and undo. First, it's even how would I put it, the pride that yes, you're actually doing such things. And then it gave me connections. I mean, I had a global connection because ISEC was a global organization. So I think being in ISEC, and in these days, you have so many organizations like that. There's ISEC, there's JCs, there's so many different organizations prepared me for the world of work. So as at the time I was leaving school, a lot of people already worked with me. Should I recall a certain time that I think the head of finance of Procter& and Gamble, because Procter& and Gamble was a partner for ISEC in Lagos, and we had organized a number of career fairs for them. And of course, as president of ISEC in Lagos, I was a visible representative of that. And he had directly said, you know what, Sheye, I want you to come and work with me directly. So because I was working with different CEOs, different global leaders, it gave me the visibility to these decision makers who then said, oh, we like your work ethic, we like what you do, we want you to work with us. So even the three offers there were more, that's just it. So it was just around the 4 years or 5 years now that I'd spent in ISEC doing different leadership things. So that was how I came about having three offer letters, as it were in terms of documents. How did I make the selection? Very strange, but I had a dream, and I'm a child of God, right? And God speaks to me in different ways, and my dreams is one of it. And it literally, the dream literally played out what would happen in the three different options that I had chose, right? And so that then led me to define, of course, I mean, when you can see the future, right? You know what will happen. So yes, so that, because I mean, I had three options. I had different mentors telling me to go for different options. So there was no general. So at that point, I really needed to pray and go to God. And yes, he did give me the answer to it. And interestingly, the option I went with was the least financially rewarding. And it was one that many people would not have chosen. But yes, it worked out. It worked well in my favor.
Wow, thank you. So I'm hearing intentionality. You already knew that you really didn't want to work as an accountant. So you were intentional about getting some sort of exposure. And that really helped with the networks that led to those job offers. And so the message is that intention is really, really important. And there are lots of benefits, such as networking. I also hear you speak about your faith, and that's what guided you in terms of the decision that you finally made, because you sort of had a sneak peek into what the outcomes of each one will be through your spirituality and your faith. Yeah, thanks for that. You had actually started speaking about ISEC, which was an organization that you affiliated with and really put a lot of work into. I want to connect it with global exposure. What I've found is that typically a lot of entry level or mid level career professionals believe that they need to study abroad or gain some sort of global exposure. And you also even wanted to have some sort of education abroad, but at that time it didn't work out, and you then chose the ISEC, and that really gave you a lot of exposure. So, how has this, or how did that exposure, how did it shape your career trajectory? And what would you say to professionals who are considering education abroad? Do you see that it enriches the careers in any way?
Okay, I mean, it's a bit difficult to answer because the internet has really democratized access, right? So, as at that time, you did not have the internet as, I mean, easily. That was a time where you used to go to cyber cafes to pay for 30 minutes of internet time just to send an email, right? That now is available to us on our mobile phones. So
Right.
whilst that global access, because one thing I believe in, you can only grow as far as your eyes and your mindset can see, right? So
Mm,
if you do not see, let me put it this way. So if you are someone who was born in a slum in any part of Africa, let me not mention any names, and you were born there, you grew up there, imagine not even having any access to internet. You are limited by what you can even believe you're capable of doing, right? But when you get access to people around the world who are doing bigger things, I think for me, what ISEC did was to connect me with people across the world who were just like me, who were doing incredible things. I was also able to connect with people. Don't forget, I said I was having meetings with CEOs and all of that. And it just made me realize that, look, you can really be anything that you want to be, right? And I'll just cite a simple example of some of the things that I learned during ISEC. So I recall there was a time that there was a global conference and we wanted to go, right? I think I was, as a national no, state president, I wanted to go. And I really needed a company to sponsor it. Don't forget, my family, we did have plenty money, right? So they could not even I don't know, recall I told you that I had a scholarship, but we didn't even have enough funds to buy flight tickets for me to even be able to use it. And this was the same, you now want to travel for a conference. I couldn't even open my mouth to tell my parents, right? So typical of what we'll do in ISEC, I wrote proposals and I remember walking to the office of Arctic Group. Arctic Group, as at then, I don't know if that's what they're still called, were the owners of the Spa supermarket, right, that you have right now, as at then. And I wrote a proposal because of the conference was in India and I wanted to go. So imagine some year three or year four girl just carrying proposal saying, I want to see your CEO. You know, that confidence of I want to see your CEO. And then you're sitting in the CEO and you're telling him that you want to enter into a partnership with him, right? What is the partnership? Pay for my ticket to go to India and your organization will benefit from it. And I'm imagining that the CEO is looking at me that what on earth is my organization going to benefit out of this? But yes, he did sponsor myself and the vice presidents to
Wow.
attend. It's just those kind of, and we had quite a number of that. I remember that, I think, was it Gulf Bank or Gateway Bank? It no longer exists, but yes, there was a bank like that that also supported us significantly. We had different organizations like that. So the point is, when you see other people, I never would have thought that was possible if other people in other countries were not telling us how they also used to do it and give us templates and all of that. You get what I mean? So, what, as far as your eyes can see, determines how far you can move in your career. If you're not seeing people like you doing things that you never could imagine, you will never step into those shoes. If you're not seeing people like you becoming World Bank presidents, right? Or becoming female national presidents, or becoming anything you want to imagine in this world, you will not even, and if you don't, I mean, if you don't conquer your mind and conquer your belief system, you cannot even begin to put in the work that is required to make it manifest in the physical. Okay. So
Right.
for me, I think that's the benefit of being global this day, and you don't need to have a foreign degree certificate to get that global exposure. Internet has democratized a lot of these things. You have YouTube, which is the biggest university ever. You have so many different search engines, and then you also have your LLMs. Let me not mention any names, right? So many of them. What is boundaryless right now? There are no boundaries to how far you can go. There are no boundaries to what you can do if you just believe.
Wow. Wow. Fantastic nuggets there. As far as your eyes can see, wow. Meaning, exposure is really important. Access to information, access to knowledge. And my big takeaway is that, firstly, the world is globalized now. It is borderless. The internet has made things really easy. It's democratized the information that we didn't have in the past. In fact, there are things like work from Harvard that is on places like Coursera and Udemy. So there is really no reason to not be able to access those now for professionals. So it's not all about going abroad. There's so many other ways that you can get the information that you need. That's really fantastic. And one thing that I've also picked up is that your joining ISEC really built your confidence, because that's what made you able to be able to approach the CEOs of organizations. So it's also good that people explore organizations like that. They do a lot to provide the kind of international opportunities that people are looking for to be able to accelerate their career trajectory. Thank you. You went on to bag an MBA at some point in your career, and I'm quite interested to know why you made that decision, and also how has this MBA enriched your career. And the reason why I ask is because so many professionals today believe that if they do not bag an MBA, then they cannot accelerate their careers.
Okay, so why did I decide? Thank you for that question. Why did I decide to go for an MBA? I'm a lifelong learner, right? And I'm constantly learning. No day passes by without me learning. So I think, why did I decide to go for an MBA? An opportunity came up and I decided to take the opportunity and I went for it. In fact, as at the time I went for my MBA, I'd wanted to do it previously, earlier on in my career, and my choice then was a certain university in Nigeria. I was told I didn't have the requisite years of experience, right? And I'm like, you know what, that's so by the time the opportunity for an MBA came, I just took the opportunity. And yes, it was 75% funded by the organization I was working with then, just because I was a top talent. It was, so it was just like an opportunity, right? I mean, the organization was willing to sponsor it, and then there was this opportunity for me to do it. And yes, I did it. But I want to also say something, and I don't know how it will sound, and I'm not discouraging anyone who wants to go for an MBA. But till date, I've not used that MBA to do anything. I've not gotten any job offer because I have an MBA. I've not gotten any opportunity. I do not think I could have just had my BSc and I'll still have done everything that I've done.
Wow.
Yes, it equipped me for knowledge to manage organizations better, to lead better. I don't think that was significantly significant. Is that an English word? I don't think that was significant, right? I've also done an MSc after that, and still yet again, like the MBA, I've not used it for anything beyond just, adding to your shoulder pad. Like I always say, that you have an MBA and you have an MSc from a foreign university. Well, I'm still waiting. No, I'm still waiting. Let me not say. I'm still waiting for the benefit I will get as a result of those certifications. But no, I've not gotten any benefit from that. Rather, I have gotten more benefit from programs like senior management program from a certain university that we know in Nigeria and even other foreign organizations. And that is foreign universities. That is why at PAWEN we are so focused on what we do, right? Because that senior management program, for instance, shaped me a lot. I mean, it's significant. The networks that I formed in that program still helps me till today. Some of our faculty were from that program. Some of my closest friends today are from that program. So I'm not saying that you should not go for an MBA. If you want to go for an MBA, absolutely, please feel free to go. If you want to go for a PhD, please feel free to go. But don't just also expect that because as a result of you doing that, it will necessarily open for you. For some people, yes. When the world of work now is really much more of, and even the world of business is what you can do with what you know and not what necessarily you know. Okay.
Mm.
So yeah, how can you monetize what you know? How can you add value with what you know? How can you what innovations can you come up with what you know? So it's really what you can do with what you know, not the amount of degrees and certificates and certifications that you have.
That's really deep wisdom there. And what's jumping at me is that you did go ahead to bag an MBA, even an MSc. They haven't necessarily opened doors for you, even though you believe that perhaps there's foundational knowledge that you have gained through going through those programs. But the thing that jumps at me the most is about the application. So it's not about bagging degrees. It's about how do I apply the knowledge that I have learned. And that is really, really profound. And we find a lot in this part of the world that application could be a problem. So people are bagging degrees and having mostly theoretical knowledge, but unable to apply those in the real world. So it's important to find a balance between theoretical knowledge and real world application because it's all about providing solutions at the end of the day, solutions that can help change our world. And you're not saying that people should not go ahead. If they do need these degrees and they believe that it will enrich their careers, it's very important that they go on with it. Thank you. Real deep wisdom shared there. All right. I want to now focus on your work experience. In our conversation, I found that you have experience across various sectors. You've worked in construction, telecoms, I think even aviation, and I think there's some that I can't even remember right now. And usually there's
Oil and
this
gas.
deep oil and gas. So you've had rich experience across various sectors. I do find that some professionals wrestle with the discussion around multi sector versus one sector experience. So I'd like to get your perspective on that. Do you see that multi sector experience enriches or has enriched your own career? Or is it better to just deepen in one sector?
From my experience, I really don't know why anyone would want to focus on just one sector, right?
Mm.
Because you are just in the same way, it's nicer to have a fruit salad than to have bananas alone. That's the same way it is better for you to have multiple work experiences in different industries than just having, experience in one industry. it opens up your eyes to different nuances of working, different complexities that occur in different organizations. You really cannot call yourself an expert if you've not had the experience of working in different diverse industries. So I think it makes you a well-rounded professional. It helps you to be able to come up with solutions, because the beauty of working in multi-sectors is that when you now then have challenges in any other sector, you're able to glean from the different experiences that you have in those different sectors and come up with a unique, innovative solution to whatever problems that you have. And I guess it's one of the reasons why I'm very creative and innovative, because I mean, I'm able to pull ideas from different sectors and say, okay, how can we blend this in a way that will then solve this problem more effectively and more efficiently? So I am always, and I stand to be corrected. I mean, if there's anyone who would probably school me on why it's better to just be in one, but I still believe that a fruit salad is better than one fruit.
Yeah. I actually really love that. So, in your view, multi-sector experience is really, really good. From your own lived experience, it's enriched your career, and you do find that it's helped you to deal with complexity because you've experienced various sectors, and so it's easy to come up with solutions. It's easy to be more creative. So that's a really good takeaway for those who do get the opportunities to be able to cross into various sectors. It is good, and you are a living testimony about how that enriches careers. Thanks a lot for that. So your background, you actually started in human resources. And one of the things that we find, there are not so many professionals who are able to transition from human resources to CEO roles. And so you broke a glass ceiling there, and that's really a great accomplishment. What would you say was responsible for your ability to be able to make that transition?
Well, I think yet again is having access to, in this case, having access to mentors, right? So I
Mm,
was not your conventional HR person. You cannot have Bolaji Lagunju as a mentor and you'll be a conventional HR person, right? He would always say HR is there to solve problems for the business and not the other way around. So from I remember, I mean, those days when we used to go for trainings at Workforce, he would always say, you need to be strategic. You need to think about the business. You need to always think about how are my HR solutions solving a problem for the organization. So I always saw it from that lens. At some point, when there was a strategy role open in my organization, it was never even opened up for recruitment. The chairman just said SKP is going to take on this role together with HR role. So I was leading strategy for a group of organizations. And yeah, when an opportunity, from HR to strategy. And then, of course, I mean, when the opportunity for a CEO role came, that was the obvious choice.
wow. There's a lot of wisdom coming out of what you've just shared, especially for HR professionals who are finding it difficult to break that glass ceiling. One of the things I'm hearing you say is that you took the opportunity within your organization for additional responsibilities. So when there was opportunity to get into strategy, you did that. And I recall that you even mentioned that you got into IT. And so when it was time to move into the CEO role, it was quite easy because you had kind of worked cross functionally. So, how would you suggest that people in human resources roles prepare themselves for this kind of transition? I mean, not everyone would have the skill to be able to take on something like IT, for example, and even strategy.
Why not?
So, what would be
Why
your
not?
your recommendation?
I mean, you said something like not everyone will have the skill to take on IT. Why not? You learn,
Okay, so what
right? You
should we
learn.
know? How do we prepare?
So I think the first thing is for you to understand that HR as a professional has different sides to it, right? I mean, I've left HR more than a decade, but now there's the employee champion aspect, there's the
Mm,
strategic aspect, there's the administrative aspect, And then I think there's one on operational excellence. Right? Those are the four cardinal points of an HR person. The first thing you need to do, especially when you get to a leadership role, such as a HR director role or, CHR role, whatever the nomenclature is to ensure that the administrative part is done by other people. Your role is to then look at the organization direction. What are the what's our corporate objectives, and how can I contribute to this bottom line through HR initiatives? So it shouldn't be the organization trying to bend to HR must do performance. Why are you doing performance appraisal? So by the time you shift that mindset of being focused on the bottom line of the organization and how do I help this organization achieve their bottom lines, your thinking will be different, your solutions will be different. You'll be more valued because then your CEO, because at the core of it, the CEO is task is to deliver on the corporate objectives of the organization. And if you're helping your CEO achieve that, I don't understand. No matter how much he does not like you, he will still be his friend. So the dynamics of this would differ from organization to organization, but the core of it is understand what the corporate objectives of your organization is and ask yourself, how can I contribute tangible and intangible solutions to this? Now, every other thing will then flow from that. And then equip yourself with knowledge. Read. If you don't know how to do, I've not done, okay, yes, I've always had a flair for IT. I've done some coding courses when I was in school and all of that, but there's really nothing anyone cannot pick, right? So you can always, and as I said, the result of hard work is more work. So a lot of times I was given those additional responsibilities without any commensurating or, any increase in my salary. But the opportunity to grow, the opportunity to expand myself was a whole lot of benefits to me, which I appreciated. I know I used to complain a lot of times that people are just increasing my work, and not increasing my salary. What's happening now? But yes, I didn't look at that. For me, one thing my mentors would always say is you should deliver excellently. Take every task like you are being paid $1 million for it, and one day you will indeed get that $1 million. I think that's it.
There's so much knowledge and nugget packed in what you've said. And a few that I can recap is it's important for HR people who are looking to transition into CEO roles to find ways of freeing themselves from the admin part of human resources so that they can focus on what's more strategic and how to support the business in terms of the bottom line. And what that does, it sort of expands your strategic capabilities, which then goes back to what we were talking about initially about why shouldn't an HR person be able to take on strategy. And then you said learn. You had to learn about IT. So it's important to continuously learn. And you also spoke about doing excellent work. So what you're doing right now, make sure that you're doing it excellently. You put up your hand when the opportunities were available, even when the financial reward wasn't there. So those are some of the things that professionals need to focus on, sort of building their cross-functional capabilities so that when there are opportunities to step into roles like that of the CEO, then they are equipped to do that. And they've already been visible enough and done excellent work already. So yeah, there will be sponsors who will then also support them. Fantastic. After a while in your career, after being CEO for a while, you then transitioned into, will I call it social impact work, where you started to build PAWEN and also Tech Up Africa. One would have thought that, being CEO was the peak. So what really catalyzed that decision, that transition, and how did you prepare for that kind of shift, because it's quite a drastic shift, someone who had been in corporate all the while now transitioning into social impact work?
Okay, so I think in my own case, it wasn't such a dramatic shift because I'd always been involved in social impact work.
Okay.
When I was in the university, I was a volunteer for so many different social impact organizations, right? So, in different fields, so as not to mention any names. And so I've always been involved in. So there was just a bit of a lot going on in my life, as at some years before I started PAWEN. Yes, I was promoted to the CEO role, but I didn't want it. I did not want it. I think I'd spent a long time in the organization, and somehow the organization, I was really tired of the organization. I really wanted to leave, and the opportunities were not just coming as I'd hoped. Then, so, not making me the CEO was not just, I mean, I recall not being happy for a long time. And a lot of people were like, Shay, is this life crisis? No one will kill to be in your role. I mean, it's not like you set up the organization and you called yourself CEO. This is like you were promoted to CEO role. What's wrong with you? So I really wanted something different, right? But I mean, then, should I say, to make matters worse, or let's just say coincidentally, I got pregnant also just shortly after I was made the CEO. So of course, I was not going anywhere, that kind of thing. But then there was a hostile takeover that occurred in the organization then, and it just left such a bitter taste in my mouth that I just felt, you know what, I wanted to move away from corporate life.
Mhm.
And then I really wanted to become an entrepreneur, just set up a business and run all of that. But then I got an instruction, and that's what it is from God, to start PAWEN, and that's how I started PAWEN. But it wasn't such a huge transition because, I mean, I had been volunteering for different organizations and all of that. I'd always wanted to set up an organization like PAWEN, but it was supposed to be more like a retirement plan. But when God now then said, my daughter, you're now going to stand off, just like he told, go to a land that I will show you, right? So it was pretty much like that, to say, we're going to start PAWEN. I did not have a clear vision as to what I was going to do. And so, but I just started with what I had then and the opportunities that I had then. And here we are, as they say, the rest is history.
Fantastic. So, what I'm hearing is that even when you were CEO, and everyone would have thought that you're fulfilled and accomplished, that there's nothing more to achieve, you were being called into something deeper, something higher. And in terms of preparation, you had already been volunteering in any case. So that sort of made the transition easy for you. And I would imagine that that would also be a recommendation that you would like to give to people who are looking at pursuing those kind of paths. So volunteering makes it easier for you. So yeah, you then transitioned into social impact, and here we are today. PAWEN is doing amazing work. Tech Up Africa as well. During our conversation, you mentioned that you are on boards. In fact, I know that you served on a number of boards, and you also run a board readiness program. What does it mean to be board ready? And at what point in people's careers should they start thinking about board opportunities?
Okay, I don't think let me start with the latter question. I don't think it's too early to be on a board because interestingly, increasingly now we are seeing this happening. I've not seen any organization like that in Africa, but in global organizations, you're beginning to see demand for representation of young people on board, right?
Mm,
So I would not say it's too early. Our board readiness program, we actually have a mentoring session that we're going to kick off in July, just a few weeks from now. And one of the mentors is the youngest board member on the central bank of any African country. So this is just going to buttress, I mean, this is just to buttress the fact that boards are really looking for young people. So it's never too
mhm.
early to begin to think around those things. It's never too early to begin to say, I want to equip myself with the knowledge. Right. And what does it mean to be board ready? Being on a board is all about governance. You are there to ensure that the organization is able to fulfill its corporate objectives, and there's ethical decision making, and that the governance systems are enshrined and executed as they should be. And of course, to ensure that the organization remains able to meet up with its obligations, whatever regulatory, financial, and all of that. So it's not necessarily about doing the work, but it's about governance. So the question is, um, what do you know about governance? What do you know about your role as a board member? What do you know about the different committees that most boards will typically have? What do you know about guiding the executive team to be able to be better in the execution and delivery of their roles. So it's a whole lot of broad level thinking as opposed to, and I think the best quality of a board member is your ability to be able to ask the right questions. Because don't forget, you are
Wow.
guiding the executive team. So when they present you with your board pack and they present you with all the reports that they usually present, how are you able to interpret that? How are you able to analyze that? How are you then able to ask the questions that will really uncover? Because sometimes some of those reports are packaged to make the organization look good. But how are you able to ask questions that will make everybody begin to think in the way they should? It's not necessary. Don't forget, your role is governance, right? Your role is ensuring that the organization is able to meet its corporate objectives. So it's that kind of thinking as opposed to the doing and the execution of the day-to-day activities. So it's a really different mind shift. It's a really different competence requirement. And yeah, that's what it means to be board ready.
Yes. So, contrary to conventional thinking, where people think that they should start thinking about board roles towards, the latter part of their careers, you are saying that shouldn't even be the case. You should start thinking about it right from the word go, because even boards are looking for young people that have something to bring to the table. That's really rich wisdom, and I think it's really going to be helpful to our audience. Also, being on a board is really about governance. It's about being able to ask the right questions. So people who are looking for such opportunities need to develop competencies in those areas: governance, good questioning skills or ability to question, curiosity, and things along those lines. Yep. Thank you for that. Let's look a bit into your transition from corporate to social impact work. And I want to look at it from the reward standpoint. I imagine that it was really financially rewarding being in corporate, but I'll also leave you to answer that. Was it financially rewarding being in corporate? And if you compared it to being a social entrepreneur, which is more rewarding? And then what advice would you have for people who are wrestling with that decision of going into purpose driven work, but they're thinking about the financial side of things?
This is what you call jam question. Okay, so just to answer your question directly, of course, it was more rewarding being in corporate. So many
Mm,
times I've actually said, you know what, I want to go back to corporate and be making money. But I also know that there was a time in my life when I was making so much money and I had a lot of passive income actually coming in, but I felt empty. So I've been
mm,
in those shoes where I had a lot of money, but I felt empty. And now I'm doing impact work. I may not have as much money, but I feel fulfilled. I feel truly and genuinely fulfilled. I feel truly happy. When I get feedback of, it's good to have those numbers that, yes, okay, we've had over 10,000 beneficiaries. But for me, I think it's all is in the individual stories that really make the magic for me. When people send me messages and give me specifics of how their life has been transformed. So this is not, oh, my life changed. Mm-mm. Because of you, I'm able to do this. So for me, those stories is usually the driving force. And I tell people so many times I've thought about shutting down when Tech Up Africa, I was so close to shutting it down, God knows a zillion times. But hearing those stories of impact, and I think I often say that God has an interesting sense of humor. Every time I think about shutting both or any of them down, I would always get either a WhatsApp almost happens by default. All I need to do is just think about it, and then I'll get a message, either WhatsApp or LinkedIn or anywhere, giving me length messages of how what we do has literally transformed their lives or how it has improved economic outcomes for them. I mean, just real true stories that will just make you, and you'll be like, okay, if you shut it down, Do you know that this person would not have been able to do this, or that person would have not been able to do that? Or, so it's a purpose and that has been given a birth by God. Sure, I mean, I like the money. Who does not like money? But there's really nothing as good and as fulfilling as knowing that you are truly changing lives and impacting generations. I mean, I think for me, that's more rewarding. Easier to say, yeah, than financial rewards. But hey, I'm happy. I'm truly fulfilled. I go to bed every day. I mean, I'm happy. I mean, I pray to live long, but if God calls me today, I'm fulfilled. I have no regrets. Yeah, I really have no regrets. Although, I mean, I really want to get to 1 million people. That's my goal, to directly impact 1 million people. And I don't think I'm going to leave this world until that is done.
Absolutely fantastic. And I love the way that you've answered the question because you tried to paint two pictures where you were making a lot of money, but you weren't truly fulfilled. At some point, there was that calling to do something more impactful, even though it's not as rewarding. I mean, who knows, in a couple of years it could even be more rewarding than it was in corporate, but it's not more rewarding at the moment, but it is so fulfilling for you, and that compensates for that reward. I love the part that you had mentioned how the stories of people that have been impacted really gives you fulfillment. And so impact work is not for everyone. It's really for those who it's not for everyone. If it's about the reward, then it's probably not for you. But if you're looking for impact, if you want to really make a difference in other people's lives, then you will find fulfillment there. Wow, absolutely amazing. So you are one person that I know that has managed to be relevant through various sectoral changes and other transitions, especially transitioning from the CEO role to the social impact work that you now currently do. Are there principles that you believe have helped you to remain relevant that our audience can glean from?
Oh, okay, so I'm just going to share some principles that have helped me. I probably would have prepared for this, but I mean, I always have those nuggets in top of my head. I think first and foremost is I'm a Christian, right? So I would say first and foremost, and this is not religion centric or Christian centric. We all believe in some kind of faith. We all believe in some religion, right? But whatever your belief is, you need to be anchored spiritually. And I think that is the foundation. You need to be really anchored
Absolutely.
spiritually. That's for me is the basics. And I think the second one is deliver excellent work always, because you are only as good as your worst delivery. I mean, just always deliver excellent work. You never know how people will experience your work, right? So even though you wake up and you really just feel like you really don't feel like putting in excellence, always deliver excellence. If there's anything anyone will tell you about experiencing SKP or experiencing SKP's work, is the fact that we deliver with excellence. Okay, so that's the first thing. One, deliver with excellence. No, what one, have your spiritual anchors. Secondly, deliver excellent work always. The third thing is for you to recognize the power of people. People will, no matter how good you are, no matter how spiritually anchored you are, people will be that bridge between the opportunities that you need to be able to scale your impact and scale your visibility. So you always need to, build relationships, build quality relationships. And it's more about the quality of the relationships that you build and not necessarily about the quantity. The quantity also helps, but focus on building quality relationships. That would be a number one, two. Let me just continue. I think another thing that has truly defined or shaped the way I work and the things that have helped me is I believe in mentoring. At some point, I dedicate my Tuesdays to mentoring, because at some point you would go off the stage. You need to build the next generation of people who will then take the baton from you. So mentoring is key, is important. And especially in this day, I believe in reverse mentoring, right? And I think I executed it in one of the organizations that I worked in, where you have older people mentoring younger people, and the younger people that they are mentoring are also mentoring them. Interestingly, I was actually even thinking of making out a call for a Gen Z mentor, right? Because all my Gen Z mentors have become, big women and big men in their careers. That reverse mentoring is crucial. And I think that really encompasses a lot of the things I would say. Do excellent work always, have a spiritual anchor. People oh no, never stop learning. Never stop learning. In short, I learned something in my final year when I went to Netherlands. Was it Netherlands or Germany? No, I think it was Germany. I went to Germany for a conference sponsored by Microsoft. And I honestly cannot remember who the speaker was, but he said something that resonates with me so deeply. He said, what you know that is going to give you, no, sorry, let me repeat it. What you know that gives you competitive advantage right now will become common knowledge in a few years' time. So be a constant learner. You need to ensure that you're always on learning, relearning, and learning, right? Learning has to be every day. I ask myself, what have I learned today? Okay, so I think that's number 5. Let me stretch this to 6, to 7. I think one of the things that is also then important. So I've talked about spiritual anchors. I've talked about excellence always. I've talked about mentoring. I've talked about learning,
Continuous learning.
right? It's also continuous learning, right? It's also important that you stay humble. Humility is such an we just don't seen a lot of people crash their careers and their lives because of ego and because of pride. So humility is such a big and understated armor in your your war chest that anyone who is going to make an impact, anyone who is going to achieve success must have. Chad, I personally think that some people do not achieve the success that they should because of pride, right? Because really God knows that if you achieve this level of success, you may not be able to manage it. So humility would play a big part. And I think honor will be my last 7. I like 7 nuggets. So honor will be my last nugget, right? I actually learned this. I think God taught me. There was a time I was, I think I was in year 4. I'll never forget. It was in University of Lagos. We had gone there's this main auditorium, University of Lagos. We had gone for a webinar or a session, right? And they were introducing the speaker. And as the speaker was coming on stage, everybody was standing. And I mean, I was like, why should I stand? Is it not a human being like me? But God just said, in that minute, the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, you're going to stand up and honor this person. Honor is what is given to people. You must give honor to whom honor is due, right? God then took me on a journey of learning the importance of honor. So honoring people, no matter how big they are, no matter how young they are, honoring them for who they are, honoring them for the gifts that God has placed in them, and honoring them just because they're human beings, right? So honor will be I don't see it a lot. I see a lot of honor, especially amongst our young people. Honor will open doors for you. Honor and loyalty, right? I mean, those two go together.
All right, SKP. So what's your take? What's your take on AI, the rise of AI, especially when it comes to women professionals in Africa, and meaningful work? And I've asked about those particular group of people because that's really where you're focusing your work at the moment. So what's your take?
Whether we like it or not, AI has come to stay, and AI really is changing the way we work, the way work is done, and the value of work actually. So AI has come to stay. I think what women, particularly African women, should always, and I think we need to do it with some sense of urgency, is to then ask
Uh,
ourselves to say some what you call scenario mapping for your career, and ask yourself, what are the possible future, what ways will this career play out in future with the emergence of AI? And AI is not, I mean, when you say AI, a lot of people are thinking about, the popular LLMs that you have, or they're thinking about, oh, can you create those baby? The focus is more on generative AI. Now, generative
Mm,
AI is just one aspect of AI. AI is artificial intelligence. So the question is, how can you leverage AI to make you more effective, more productive? We all need to go back to school to learn,
mm,
right? And because the pace of change of how AI is transforming our lives is at such an unprecedented pace, you cannot just say you want to hands off and you don't want to learn, right? Because, for
mm,
instance, if you do not know how to use a computer, you most likely would not know how to use the applications on the computer. If you don't know how to use the applications on the computer, you don't know how to use those applications to make a more productive professional. So imagine someone who doesn't know how to use a computer now, and then you are in a world of work where you even need to even start coding or developing no code apps to make your work better. You can't relate. That's exactly why women particularly needed to begin to start thinking of what are possible scenarios that could evolve in the future as a result of the emergence of AI and the way AI is being, and how can I begin to prepare myself for it? What learning do I need to do? And this learning does not necessarily have to be paid for. Just go to YouTube. Oh Lord. YouTube is the biggest, freest university that you can ever have. So, and there are a lot of courses also which you can pay for. You have a lot of all these MOOC courses on Udemy, Coursera, EDX is my favorite, right? I mean, because I just like it. So you just always need to upskill and ask yourself, how can you learn? And I think one thing that I'm doing that's helping me a lot is, especially for women who are my age. Now I'm very young. I'm very young. I'm very young. For people who are my age and above, right, the way we understand AI is way different from the way those younger people, Gen Alpha and Gen Zs,
mm.
understand AI or understand even technology. So your ability to grab the smart ones to help you learn. Because for them, and I'll give an example, there's something I wanted to learn about AI agents, and I really went on YouTube and I watched it. I couldn't deal. I couldn't deal. I was not understanding. And it's not like I'm not smart. I'm to a large extent I'm very smart. But I just couldn't keep up with the pace at which 17-year-old was teaching. Do you get?
Mm.
So it's just also having those people around you to then help you learn at that pace. Because I also know that a number of people may have faced what I've faced to say, okay, we actually want to learn. We've actually gone to those courses, but they start nicely and then you just get to some point and you're like, okay, what magic did you just do? And then you just totally disconnect, right? So I think it's important that we just embrace it. It's the future. There's no turning back.
So it's a case of ignore AI at your own peril.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. So much nuggets that you've shared there. The fact that a lot of us think that AI is just GPT, or just generative AI, there are still so many aspects of AI. Very important that we familiarize ourselves, and it doesn't have to be expensive. There are many platforms that we can get the knowledge that we need to be upskilled. Something else that came out so beautifully is the fact that you spoke about reverse mentoring. The fact is that the younger generation appeared to be a lot more skilled and a lot more proficient in the use of AI. And so it will be beneficial for those of us who are the older generation to be humble enough to allow reverse mentoring so that we can learn AI because it has come to stay and it's going to make us a lot more effective. So that
Yeah,
human
just to
AI
put it in
handshake,
context,
extremely
those of
important.
you that are in the older generation, me, I'm still a Gen Z.
I'm still a youngster myself.
I'm still a Gen Z. I just need the younger Gen Zs to help my life. Just
Absolutely. We should realize that we need them. So there's a big place for reverse mentoring where AI is concerned. They were born into technology and we just have to accept that. Have you ever experienced burnout? You've been in very high pressure sectors, high pressure roles. Tell us if you've experienced burnout and how did you navigate that?
Are you asking me if I've ever eaten rice or if I've ever drank Coke? I mean, burnout is. But I think for me, what I'm okay, what I'm doing now is learning to infuse in my daily life things that distresses me. Right.
Mm,
Burnout is a day to day. I mean, I'll give you an example. My schedule is booked till the end of the year. I mean, so I'm looking at my calendar and I'm like, why? How did my life get so busy and complicated? Right. So, but it's just understanding that that's the nature of it, and there's a lot of things to be done. But it's also not then realizing that even in as much as I would never have that opportunity to shut my laptop for a week, it can't happen. Then in a day, so I have some things I do to distress. At least twice a week, I go to swim and sauna. Right. It is no matter how busy I am, I have to create time for that. And for me, that makes so swimming is my happy place. I love to swim. It's my happy place. And then the sauna is just an opportunity to just enjoy distress and all of that. So I do that at least twice a week. And also depending on the intensity of work, sometimes I do it three
mm,
times a week. So if work is really, I ensure that I create time. And fortunately for me, where I go to swim opens by 6. So I can actually even do a 6 a.m. swim and then just understanding the cycles of my work and understanding those cycles and ensuring that it's a deliberate attempt. If you are thinking that it will just happen, no, you just need to, and it could be anything, right? For some people, and for me also is sleep. You see, much as hard as I work, my body shuts down by 9 o'clock. No matter what you are doing, no matter, except when I'm working on pay work, right? Pay work is the only thing that will keep me still awake. So I can be awake, but I may not just be able to do anything, right? So just also understanding. So there's something called, I'm not sure if I'm getting it right, circadian rhythm, right? Which is just understanding what your peak times are and what your low times are. You need to understand. I mean, if you Google it, yeah, there's something like that which just on that. I mean, there's a general circadian rhythm that everybody have. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right. It's one of those big words that you just um. But it's just understanding when your body works best and when your body doesn't work as good. So, for instance, I schedule my swim and sauna times for those times when I know that even if I have a zillion things to do, I'm not able to work at my best because my body is not able to work at its best. So at that point in time, it's better for me to just go and relax. I relax, I come back, I hit the work, and I get better output. So I measure my output. So I work at those times that I know that I'm able to maximize my output. And I'm learning to delegate a bit more. So I do fuss a lot about little detail. I'm learning that, okay, even if that poster has some errors, it's not the end of the world, right? I'm learning that before I used to fuss on all those tiny details, but now I'm like, it's okay, it's not the end of the world, right? So also learning to take things easy, ensuring that you just don't stress yourself over things that are not necessarily worth it. But I mean, I think that's just it. Know your body, understand your cycles, and work in a way that maximizes your output.
yeah, thank you so much. I think it's important that professionals realize that burnout is real. We will experience burnout at some point in our careers, but there are things that we can do, and some of those things you've shared with us. What you do. I also enjoy swimming, by the way, so we should look for things that can help us de-stress and just generally focus on self-care. That way we will be able to manage. So thanks a lot for that. If I look at my
I
own
want to add
career,
to that. I,
sorry.
I want to add one more thing to that. So there was a time I was feeling really burnt out. And I
Mm,
was just having a conversation with God. I'm burnt out. I cannot be doing all of these things together. And then I listened to a speaker. I think that's what I should use. And said, you're not s- you're not burnt out because how did she put it? I can't remember, but more or less that sometimes a burnout or a feeling of burnout is born out of you thinking about what you're doing.
Mhm.
So you're comparing your output with another person's output and you're feeling overwhelmed. Whereas
Mm.
God has given you capacity to do a whole lot more than that person. So sometimes we also need to ask ourselves, why are we feeling this burnout? Right? Why are we feeling the burnout? And for me, having what I call accountability partners and mentors help. So I just talk to them, and in you just talking to them, sometimes you just realize that you're not burnt out now. You're just feeling overwhelmed because you're looking at the fact that we are dealing with so many things, right? But if you look at it in retrospect, it's not, you actually can't do it, right? So I think it's just to understand when the burnout is real and then you really do shut down. The burnout, the beautiful thing about my body is that my body shuts down. So I never get to the point where I need to be hospitalized. No, my body shuts down by 9 o'clock. It does, and literally, my body shuts down by 9 o'clock. There's really nothing you want to do. Okay. But it's also then understanding that sometimes it's not necessarily that we are actually, it's a thought of burnout because burnout is something that is so common these days. And any little thing you say, oh, I'm burnt out, I'm burnt out. Come on, where's the resilience? How are you going to build resilience if you cannot deal, with the things that lie, and especially as women, because you're dealing with family, you're dealing with children, you're dealing with work, you're dealing with friends, and all of that. And you're even dealing with you, because sometimes you're dealing with you. So it's just understanding the different dynamics. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I like the angle that you bring in, that there are times that it's not that we're really burnt out. So we have to actually investigate and be sure whether it's just a feeling of overwhelm or it is actually burnout. Mentors do help. Accountability partners that we can speak to also do help. But at the end of the day, part of the key nuggets is that we need to also prioritize our self care because of the work that we do. We are prone to burnout. Thank you very, very much. My final question will be, there are many professionals out there who are really looking to grow. They also want to navigate their careers with clarity, with purpose. So, what one advice would you give to someone who's at crossroads and really looking for growth, clarity, purpose in what they're doing?
It's a rather okay. So let me answer it this way. I believe that every one of us, without exception, has a purpose in this world.
Mm,
I believe that every one of us, our journeys from the day you were born and where you were born till now has little chips of what your purpose is. So sometimes clarity just comes in you then sitting with yourself and looking inward and thinking about how, your journey, because you realize that sometimes we want to be like others.
mm,
We are drawing our definition of who we should be or what our purpose should be from external sources, whereas it should be drawn from internal sources. I mean, these days you see some people going to church and saying, "What's my purpose?" Excuse me, what exactly are you trying to get? So for me, I think it's more looking inward. When you get
mm,
that sense of stagnancy or you are at that crossroads, it's often because there is some conflict between the external and the internal. And sometimes just talking to someone helps, right? I remember at some point when I was tired, I was tired. I said, you know what? I'm going to dust my CV and I'm going to go and look for work. And then I scheduled an appointment with one of my mentors. And she then said, "Oh, okay, before we start, let's pray." And I'm like, "Now, what I've called you for is a career counseling session. We don't need to do prayer here, There's the time for the spiritual and there's the time." But then she prayed. And then when she finished praying, she was like, "Oh, she felt led in her spirit to share her story with me."
mm.
By the time she was done with her story, I told her, "You see, this career counseling, we'll reschedule it. I think I have what I need to move on to my next phase." So, first, I said look inward. Secondly, look for people who in your, by your definition, have clarity. And then they'll be able to share their journeys with you. And then you then realize that sometimes this clarity thing is overhyped. Sometimes it's just starting with what you have and then doing the best with what you have. I believe that God has blessed each and every, as in it's just like a cook. Do you understand? A cook that has ingredients for salad and a cook that has ingredients for jollof rice, your output will be different. But sometimes, as a cook, you have the ingredients for jollof rice, but you are thinking that, you are an intercontinental cook. What you want to make is salad. But your ingredients you have is ingredients for jollof rice. Come on, why don't you just make the jollof rice and start with that? Okay? So I believe that God has placed into each and every one of us all the ingredients that we need for now. Start with what you have now, and then your clarity comes from doing. The more you do, the more skilled you become. The more skilled you become, the more you are able to see through, the more your vision is clearer, the more you are able to understand that this is the path to go. But if you don't take that initial first step, you will not even get to the junction. If you don't get to the junction, you will not know whether you need to turn left or you need to turn right. So start. If you want to go for a vacation today, for instance, and you want to go to Paris, or Dubai, wherever you want to go, if you don't even pack your bag first, do you understand? Pack your bag. Yes, at least pack your bag. Come out of your house. When you now come out of your house, I'm going to Paris. They'll look at you. You are going to Paris. Okay, for you to go to Paris, you first get to airport first now. And okay, where's the road to the airport? This is you drive like this, you get to the airport. When you get, do you understand? Clarity comes from doing. The more you do, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more knowledgeable that you become. Knowledge is light. Okay? The more you
Very
now,
powerful.
then the more you're then able to see to say, this is where I'm going to go, that is where I'm going to go.
Very powerful. So it's about doing the inner work. If you find yourself at that crossroad, you need to sit with yourself, do the inner work. It's not about comparing yourself to other people. There are giftings in you, and it's through that introspection. You also mentioned, our origin stories, the things that we have experienced in our journeys. All those things sort of count towards who we are going to become. And that's why you really can't compare with anybody else. You have to sit and do that inner work. And the one that I also really liked is the fact that after you've done the inner work, you then need to start from what you have or where you are. As you move ahead, clarity will come. Thank you so much. That was really powerful. I do have one final question. I know I'd said that was the last, but there is one career pathways question that we must just ask you. Beyond titles, beyond all the accomplishments, what would you like to be remembered for?
Oh, the woman who empowered more than 1 million people in her lifetime. That's my life purpose. To directly, not that, I empowered Adeola and Adeola is able to empower 10,000 people. That directly I've been able to empower 1 million people. That 1 million people can say, as a result of SKP, this is the tangible, quantifiable, and meaningful impact that has happened in my life. That's my life's purpose. And that's so for me, it's not necessarily about purpose. Sorry, it's not necessarily about titles. It's not necessarily about, irrespective of whatever it is that I'm doing at any point in time, you will then realize that that is true. Whether I'm in, I mentioned that I was in ISEC, and that was really what I was doing. Even when I was a HR person, HR was because I wanted to help people and build people and organizations. Strategy was, okay, how can we help people? So anything you see me do, and sometimes people say, SKP, you're doing so much. At the core of anything that I'm doing, you would always see that impact is impact. I have 1 million people to impact. So, and so for me, that is what I would like to be remembered for, not necessarily that she was. And that's why I call myself executive director of PAWEN, because yes, I'm the founder, but right, it's not the title, it's not, it's in the impact. It's all about the impact for me.
I really love the fact that it's so laser clear. It's about impacting 1 million people. The fact that you've even quantified it makes it really, really, really laser focused. So thank you so much. We've now come to the end of our session today. And I must say, it's been really enriching, SKP. You've shared so much wisdom, so much nuggets with us today that I don't think that even going to a business school, you could get all that in a session. So thank you so very much from the whole team at Career Pathways with Adeola Kagho. And we want to wish you very well, because there is still, like you said, you're still a Gen Z. So there's so much more to achieve. And we're looking forward to having you back sometime on the show. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.